Good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to begin the call in about a minute or two. I'm going to wait for more people to join. Good afternoon once more, everyone. So I think we have a good number now, and I will begin now. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Aluko and Oyebode's webinar in celebration of the World IP Day 2026. My name is Alimah Araoye, and I am an associate on the intellectual property team, and I am so delighted and thrilled to be your moderator for today's session. So a brief introduction. Aluko and Oyebode is a full-service law firm with offices located in Lagos, Abuja, and also in Port Harcourt, and we offer a full range of services to our clients, from dispute resolution services to also corporate and commercial services. So the reason we're gathered here today, the World IP Day. The World Intellectual Property Day is celebrated each year on the 26th of April, and this year, the theme is titled IP and Sports, Ready, Set, Innovate. This theme shines the spotlight on the very, very dynamic world of sports, exploring how IP fuels growth, protects talents, and also enhances the global sports ecosystem. From broadcasting rights to even sponsorship deals to trademarks to design rights and even patents, IP is deeply woven into the fabric of modern sports. Today, we join a global community in recognizing and celebrating the importance of intellectual property in driving creativity, innovation, and also economic growth. This year, our theme is titled Sports as a Business, the Importance of IP Protection in Nigeria. Our speakers will explore key issues surrounding intellectual property in today's sporting industry. At this point, I would like to welcome our very distinguished guests. Our first speaker, Debbie Izamoje Okolie, fnimn, is the CEO of Brila Media Group, a pioneer and leader in Africa's sports media industry. With a visionary approach, she transformed Brila FM into Brila Media, an integrated multimedia group redefining sports broadcasting and digital storytelling across Africa. She holds degrees from the University of Sheffield and also the University College London. She also has executive certifications from the prestigious Harvard University, MIT, and also the Lagos Business School. She has contributed immensely to the sporting industry and has received several widespread recognitions, such as the Lord Achievers Award in Media and Journalism. She is also the youngest woman in sports to be recognized as a fellow of the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria. Her initiative, Football for Girls Africa, helps young girls explore diverse careers in football by promoting inclusivity. She also contributes to the Nigeria Women's Football League Task Force, advancing the role of women in sports leadership. Welcome, Debbie. It's a pleasure to have you join us here today. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to speak with everyone. I'm looking forward to a very impactful session. I don't know if I should share this, but I was talking to my colleague earlier, and I was like, I hope that we don't run into legal problems. But if we ever do, we know that we have you people to bank on because you definitely care about what we care about at home here, which is sports. So thank you for thinking about the sports industry as well.
Thank you, Debbie, for your comments. And of course, we're at your service. So our second speaker is Enitan Obadina. He's a multimedia journalist with over 15 years of experience across broadcast, print, and digital platforms. As the team lead for the review department and advanced editor sports at Opera News NG, Enitan sits at the intersection of content creation and digital rights. He is the publisher of Sports Intel NG and a growing expert in media technology, sports branding, and the evolving business of sports assets. Enitan, thank you so much for joining us today, and it's truly a pleasure to have you here with us today. Enitan, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar to discuss this very important topic, especially for us in the sports industry. It sometimes gets glossed over when rights are abused and these things that happen. So it's interesting to spotlight it at this very day.
Thank you so much, Enitan. So at this point, I would like to say that we want this session to be as interactive as possible. So if at any point you have any questions to our audience, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll get to them, or as many as time will permit us to. Thank you. So if you're just joining us, I welcome you all once more to Aluko and Oyebode's World IP Day event, and we're truly, truly excited to have you join us today. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into the heart of today's conversation, which is the intersection of sports and intellectual property. We'll be going around the room to hear from our amazing speakers on key issues that affect the sporting industry. So I'll start with Debbie. Debbie, you play such a pivotal role within the Nigerian sporting industry. Can you please tell us how you began your journey as the CEO of Brila FM and Brila Media Group?
Okay, so I had an agency called Image Boosters. We were about 5 to 6 young people. I was the oldest at the time. And what we wanted to help companies do at the time was companies that were struggling to talk to younger audiences, people that were our age. We wanted to help them communicate better with a younger audience. And Brila happened to be one of our clients. So for context, Brila is also my father's business, and I had sworn that I was never joining the family business. So I was doing my own thing. We had clients, Kenya, Ghana, we had to work with, and for some weird reason, most of the clients that we had were sporting clients, so like a sporty bet, betting companies that were trying to communicate with people. It was so strange that betting companies kept coming to us. And we worked with Brila, and yeah, it's just so interesting. I'm literally thinking back now. And we worked with Brila, and Brila launched his digital platform. And we thought it was a one-off job, but our chairman, in his great wisdom, gave me a seat in the marketing team then. And so I realized that from going to my agency Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, I'd be in Brila doing my agency's work. And then with time, decided to add Brila's work to mine because I was seeing some loopholes in terms of how they could communicate better with the digital audience. And that's kind of how, I don't know the exact dates, to be honest. I just know that there was a day where I started wearing Brila shirts. I had my Brila ID and I became part of the team. In 2020, we had a huge restructuring because the industry took a hit. That was COVID year. Overnight, we literally saw people that had worked in the business 10 years, 15 years, really rethink if they wanted to remain in media. And I became CEO at the time where everybody seems to be thinking of what they wanted to do next. But I believe I was able to show the board what is possible with sports, because we moved from just being a sports radio station to being into, I would call us a media supermarket. And I say this because we don't offer just radio services. We have digital. We've just moved into billboards and sports marketing intelligence. So that's really the journey of how I became CEO. I became CEO last year, January last year. And yeah, that's just how my journey has been. No clear strategy. You just wake up and then you find yourself in different roles within the business, and then you make it work.
Amazing. That's a very good story, Debbie. And it's very admirable to see how much impact you've made since stepping into this role.
Thank
It's
you.
truly shaped the transformation. And I love that you were able to, bring in your passion into your family business and it's worked together for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, Enitan, staying on the same course, I know that you studied mass communication at university. Can you please shed some light on what has fueled your passion or what inspired you perhaps to join to or your journey to becoming a sports journalist?
Thank you very much. My case is very interesting, and you get to hear a few about the stories here and there. I've always wanted to be a footballer. The last thing on my mind was, let me become a footballer first, then I'll go to school later, because it was most of our dreams. Football in the early 90s, football was just blowing. We are getting accustomed to the stars, and we had dreams and passion. By 96, everybody wanted to play for Nigeria. In the area, we had jerseys with different names of our heroes on our back. So that I wanted for myself. Played and the NFF Weekend Academy, Pepsi, tried everything, but suddenly I think I woke up and I said, I'm not getting any younger. And the age thing was important then. I tried going to the under 17 um, trials at Ibadan. I think I'm trying to remember the name of the coach. Coach Adisa was the coach then. I was trying to go there, and the people that went before me were going in batches. The kind of report they gave, I just knew it was not a thing for me. I should not waste my energy. They were out. I'm not on the bigger side. So they thought, if they could tell people bigger than me that they were looking too small, what would they tell me? So I didn't and just packed up my bags and went back to school. Initially I was still playing and doing school before eventually mass communication sucked me in, and really loved it. Understanding that I grew up in an area where we have a few TV personalities like Fumi Koka at NTA. She was like an inspiration to us. So it was easy for me to adapt into that, and like, oh, I could be like her, talk about sports, just since I love sports. So that's how everything just worked for me. And ever since then, stepped up. Before I finished, I already started working, freelancing at a regional newspaper. And by the time I was through with school, I was schooling and working at the same time because I got several job offers before I eventually moved to Ray Power and AIT, where I was working on a specific program. So it just went on and on. Then, of course, we'll continue discovering insights into the digital. One of the very first set of sports websites in Nigeria, nigeriasports.com. I got to work with them. When Bleacher Reporters started, I was one of their first set of freelancers in Nigeria. Did about a year and then kept moving on, went back to school for further studies, and here I am at the Upper End News NG, where I got introduced to another higher level of what I eventually to run a digital media, effect media company, where you try to get news from locals, user-generated content, implementing it at scale. Over 15,000 writers managing, checking for. At some point, we even ran into a lot of trouble trying to regulate people who bring the news to us and all that. So it was such a learning path for me and something I've come to love and enjoy doing.
Well, and that's so insightful and super impressive and also inspiring to say the least. Thank you for sharing your story so openly.
Thank you.
So my next question borders around content ownership issues in Nigeria. And I'm going to ask Debbie to please indulge us. So as the CEO of a leading sports radio station, I mean, of course, we all know Brila for Rila and its ability to transport us to live matches. Are there perhaps any challenges that you have experienced in, say, across digital social media platforms?
Of course, we've been in business for 23 years, and when you've been in business for 23 years, there's nothing you've not seen, you know. What I tell the team every time is that we do not chase the small stuff. We don't sweat about it anymore. And maybe this is feedback for lawyers as well. Sometimes on this end of the conversation, it feels like there's no justice for sweating the small stuff. So I'll give you an example. Brila has, so we have different channels through which we push out content. We have radio. We have a structure that the news must go out on radio first. So our breaking stories, raw interviews, hearing the passion. I love radio so much because that's where you really, if you really want to know what is happening in Nigeria, you actually need to listen to radio because you hear the like grown men actually crying, you know, people's fathers, and they're kind of about Arsenal or Super Eagles or something. And then you get that, and it happens in real time. And as I'm sure TV stations also struggle with this. And then you put it out. It's going to the world the same time you're putting it out. So as your content writers are translating that information to digital, somebody else is also translating that information to digital. And so we've had many cases where we have people breaking our stories as though it's where their story. Or we have, I saw something on TikTok. We interviewed Victor Osimhen, the last AFCON, and I'll try and explain for people that are not really into sports, you know. So Victor Osimhen is a popular footballer. Yeah. And we had interviewed him and I saw this content on TikTok, which is so interesting. So I was consuming it, not even knowing that it came from our platform at first, because the person had put their logo on top our logo. And I was consuming, I say, oh my God, this is when I heard the voice of somebody in-house. I said, no, this is my guy now. Like, what's happening? And I shared it with the team and I realized just like what a lot of people do, they had just put, or you think you do a graphic design, they just remove your logo. And then if you put it in a place where they can't take out your logo, the fans start to complain. You've blocked this person's head, though we cannot see them. Brila, what are you doing? You know? So the struggle to save yourself is a struggle that I don't think we've found the answer to. I gave an example that I have communications background. So I came from constantly pitching to clients because I had an agency. So I understand what it means to protect yourself before your content goes out or before anything goes out. I understand IP, trademarks, everything that we do that is important to us, the big things. You know, we ensure that we go through the proper line so that if you cross us, anything you see in front, you know, God bless, you know. But in terms of the tiny things, you know, just yesterday I was doing my research on World IP Day, and I saw that we actually have a national um committee for IP or something like that, headed like there's a whole committee. And I didn't even know this because a lot of times we feel like we need to take matters into our hands. In 2024, we had someone resign from the business and he was so disgruntled when he resigned for matters not in short. I can't even go into that, that he took an evening belt show. So this is something that we've worked on for maybe 7+ years. And he took the actual show. You see, I'm doing
Wow.
this because I was so mind blown. And he took the show and took it to another radio station. Now it's different if you are an independent producer, you can do
Mhm.
that. But a show that was created within the system, you cannot do that. However, when we started to speak to our lawyers, the first thing I realized was that we had not even put anything in our handbook to protect ourselves as a business because this is a 23-year-old business. And people are also crazy. You don't ever think that just because somebody is resigning, they will just take a whole show. And I'm grateful that he took it because the show wasn't really profitable. I was kind of hoping that we would kill the show. So it was a good chance to replace the show. But it just made me realize how you have to constantly think ahead of people. But even when you're thinking, if you are not able to protect yourself, we're not quick enough as a country compared to global standards. If I post with Brila, and because international businesses see us as a giant in Africa, there are certain things we cannot get away with. Our platform will just get taken down immediately. However,
Mm.
in Nigeria, you would see you'll be consuming your own content on another person's platform. We have so many Facebook pages in Nigeria, like we have so many Brila pages that I have
Wow.
even spoken to Meta myself to say, what are you people really doing about it? But I don't know if it's an African thing. And maybe I also would like that I'm in the midst of lawyers so that you people can even educate us on why this is happening. But it doesn't get taken as seriously as when another global or European media business is and when you cross their own boundary. So this is something that I know that enforcement is not that we don't know what to do, it's that sometimes we're not and we don't want to spend the money. I don't want to invest in IP if I know that when I run into trouble, it's going to be enforced in 5 years, So these are the things we also think of as business people. Yeah, sorry if I'm getting too passionate. You
It's
touched on
okay. We're
something
enjoying.
there.
Wow. Thank you so much, Debbie. I mean, you've given us so many practical examples, and truly, I really admire that you know the power of intellectual property. And this is why we have conversations like this to basically sensitize, our community, the audience, or everyone here about the power of trademarks or intellectual property and also its commercial advantage. And, we always have to protect our IP before it's too late. We always go through all of this during like in, during in our experience. We have so many infringement issues that we have gone through. So thank you for really sharing all your practical examples. So flowing from that, I did a deep dive into your Instagram account, and I know that you're very aware of the power of trademarks. How important would you say trademarks are to Brila Media Group and even to other sports businesses in general?
I strongly believe that without trademark, you shouldn't go to the market to ask for money. That's just what I personally think because my trademark is my money. It's my security. Um, and a great example is the tournaments that is coming up, even though Nigeria is not taking part for reasons best known to her. Um, but with World Cup coming up, and I love to use FIFA as an example because they have found a balance between making everybody feel involved but involved with limitations where you know that you can leverage the World Cup, but don't cross their boundaries because you can really get your business flatlined. I remember this story from 2010 World Cup where so Budweiser is the official beer of the World Cup. And I remember, I don't know if people watch football a lot, but I remember there was this Dutch beer at the time they had women dressed in orange because they were thinking of, okay, how do we also leverage the World Cup without, like ambush marketing? And they got women dressed in orange to appear in the World Cup, but they got fined because FIFA does not play about its rights because that's how they make money. If I've sold a certain part, and I know that they do, and maybe um, if I've sold a certain copyright to a certain market, you cannot come to my front to try and break my laws, right? So with Brila, what we always do is we ensure that we're on the good side of these people, of the copyright holders or the tournament holders. Even when we're viewing, so I know that what's raining now is watch parties. And even when we started watch parties years ago, we always aligned with Super Sports and multi-choice. And my team would get so mad at me because we would write to them and say, we want to do a watch party. Please, we need you aligned. We need your logo. Write back to us. Sometimes they will call and say, oh, Debbie, you can go ahead. Don't worry. You have my blessing. No, I don't have your blessing. Write it down, right? And I'm sure that even till now, I'm sure they look at me like this woman is crazy. Like, why do you have to do this? But it's because I know that first of all, this is a legacy business. Maybe if it were my own agency, I would move anyhow. But I'm working here, right? And I have to ensure that the legacy that was handed to me does not die in my hands. Maybe if I give it to somebody else and they decide to do all the watch parties and not sign any contracts, that's fine. So we're very big on trademarks. Everything that we do, everything that we're launching, our logo, every single thing, we always ensure that we do due diligence. And I do
Mhm.
think that it's because we've seen over time that the perception of our brand is that we're a big brand. And so sometimes we do it to set a standard, because I believe that there's nobody that works in Brila that will go elsewhere that will say, do a watch party, just do it recklessly, right? So it's to set a standard, but it's also to protect ourselves because any little mistake, and I'm
Mhm.
telling you that we've had companies from the US, companies from Denmark, we've had companies write to us, and the money they're asking for because they think we are making one. I'm like, see, I mean, sports is profitable, but please, like, don't take me back to those days. Like, what's happening? So, yeah, that's just a summary of everything. I do think we do our best in protecting the brand, But again, like I said earlier, there's just that thing where with the little things we're like, is this really worth the investment or even the emotional stress or even the calls from lawyers? Because lawyers like to call people every 5 minutes. Are this is what we're writing? So sometimes we're like, okay, let's just let that go. Yeah.
Thank you,
Uh,
Debbie.
if I
All
could
you
come
said.
in, if you don't mind.
Okay, of
Yes,
course.
please.
Yeah, so basically, it's interesting because some of the cases Debbie cited followed most of them. And for me, interestingly, I've been on the good and bad side of protecting IP and violating IP with practical life lessons, basically, because I naturally believe um, sport is where IP goes to die. Because people will legitimately fight you over your content. You argue that even sometimes they will say because they left their logo on it or your logo on it, they will conclude that they have the right to take it.
Yeah.
Basically, and I've been in a position where I was one time blacklisted by FIFA. It was interesting method of FIFA because I was working for a production and sports marketing company at some period in my life, and we package shows for Nigerians. People back then, the extent of broadcasting was not huge. You are either watching on Super Sports, and if NTA and Bond are not buying the right, this a blackout. You have to go
Yeah.
for viewing center. So we try to bring something else outside of the matches to Nigerian viewers. And that was one of the first places I learned the lessons about IP, where you have to ask for the right owners the permission to use their content, and how
Mhm.
much FIFA is so jealous about their content. They are very jealous. If you tweet a football highlight of a football match, same thing as the English Premier League, it will be taken down automatically. They don't have to write you on it, and you get a strike, a violation. Similar thing on
Mm,
YouTube. YouTube has even gotten brutal now that they will take your monetization and give it to the owner of the content that you are copying, especially for music. That's the level. But in those early days, we would just package highlight, take highlight from here and there, and just throw it on TV. We're thinking we have left their logo. So then we learned the lesson, and then we started buying rights from international broadcast partners of FIFA who will say, okay, for this region, for the Nigerian region, you are going to use this content on terrestrial. Now, there's a difference between terrestrial
Mhm.
and satellite TV. So you have to understand all these terms to be able to live, to understand how these things work. You can also take it to even pictures. One time I had to intervene when a colleague of mine took pictures of Super Eagles players. And so the question, and one of the Super Eagles players picked the picture, removed the photographer's logo, and then posted it. And the guy was angry. And people were like, did you even pay him for taking his picture? Blah, blah, blah. And it was a huge argument on X. And I had to start breaking down, explaining to people that there are certain rights that reside with the photographer when pictures are faking. And then there are certain rights that reside with the people who are in the picture. Basically, as we
Yeah.
have to start explaining. So basically, it's one of the hardest parts in what we do in our jobs, where IP dies naturally. You work so hard for your content, original content. People, places like Brila does that. They are built on original content. They want to get fresh and authentic to them, and then you finish the work. It is taking. Even for my small website that is just coming up, we finish writing a story, you do your research, and somebody just randomly pick it. No backlinks. They will barely mention your name. And then you see the content that you struggle for conduct. So sometimes you have to beg people to have time to answer your interview. And then
mm,
somebody who walks in and just picks it and slam it on their website, and that's it, it's gone. So it's a lot of work, and it's interesting that Akibode is coming into this because the kind of protection that is needed and the kind of education. I think one of the most important part, and why this webinar is important, the education is so sparse. It almost like it does not exist. So when people now understand their rights, and then we can start protecting, and because sport is built on assets. Whatever you are selling as a club is asset wise. What you are selling as a player, COVID taught us all of that. You can brand yourself as an athlete and sell. And that's why even in the NCAA, you're having name, image, and likeness nil, where athletes can market themselves. Agencies come and say we want to associate with these athletes. When
Yeah.
in one of my experiences, when we signed the rights with the Nigerian League, worked on the marketing for a company that signed as a sponsor of Nigerian League. One of the things we basically learned is you cannot say because you are sponsoring the Nigerian League, you can take any player you like. You take them in groups. You know how to use their logo appropriately. Not because you just even as a sponsor, you cannot use it anyhow. I just thought to add that.
Wow, thank you so much, Enitan and Debbie, for your contributions. I think everything that we've discussed ties in perfectly with our discussion for today. And even from our experience, we protect and also we help football associations protect and also enforce their rights in IP. So it's really a growing space, and I think it's so important to realize how many assets or how much IP is really in the sporting industry. Thank you both so much. So, flowing from that conversation, Enitan, in the Nigerian context, what opportunities do you see at the intersection of sports, media, and IP for journalists and content creators?
Oh, so that's an interesting question because I think while the outcome of the economy of sports in Nigeria is low paying, not as much, even for the big brands, they try to balance everything. Sometimes you see even sports radio stations take on some extraordinary content that on a normal day they will not take. And why is because sports as an asset on its own, despite the different angles to it, branches to it as a tree, is struggling to function properly to be placed in places where it can attract the right sponsors. And
Mm,
I'm more of a think local and act global kind of guy, where I think the easiest place for me to make money is to ensure that Nigerian sports, our league, our different sports, basketball, athletics, they can go on their own to attract both local and global partnership and sponsorships instead of everybody running after the Premier League already saturated, the Champions League already saturated. So one of the most important and biggest part that we have to find a way to stabilize assets and help people understand the work that goes into content creation, especially for content creators,
mm,
the work that goes into it, the rights they have on their content. And then before we even start talking about monetization, which is the bedrock of everything, everybody wants to make money. Until we have our players signing personal deals. Some of the biggest we have Rabiu Ali, biggest player, one of the longest serving members players in the Nigerian league. He does not have one single brand sponsorship. He does not have an IP as a person. Basically, you can go online, you could Google, and you barely have see any stories that describes him as a person. I watch all these pay to the likes of media, film media services, apps online, and you see documentaries about their sports stars. That does not exist for us as a country. So how can you build a business case out of it when you cannot properly brand your athletes? I have been in a stadium where some former Nigerian internationals are trying to enter the stadium, and then they'll look at them like you cannot enter. And like this guy is a national person. It's a brand on its own. The name. Sometimes I have to start as a journalist in those years. I have to start introducing that. Oh, you don't know this guy. He played for Nigeria. He was this, he was that. And before the security guy say, I know Sabiamo, and basically they want to block him. Sometimes I have to get inside, speak to the organizers who invited him anyways, and then before they will come in. We see our sports stars after retirement disappearing into thin air, not building on their brand, not building on their image. The few of them that really thrive, I can mention Ahmed Musa, I can mention JJ Okocha. They've successfully done that, but what they've done has not been transferred to other people. It's why our league is struggling. You can, as a whole, you cannot sell Nigerian Football League without selling the players first. The players are why people go to the stadium. So when you understand that, you can be able to build an intersection between protecting their rights, building their brand. We have to build their brand first, then we protect their rights. After working together with building the brand, then we now make a business case out of it. Unless we get to that, like I pointed out, the educational part, people do not have it. The players sign Player signs. I'll start an interesting case with the national team coach. Player signs contract. They don't bother about the rights section, the IP section of their contract.
Yeah.
So what happened was, the late Stephen Keshi, while still working with the marketing and production firm, we got the contact from a sponsor, and they were interested in bringing him. So one of the first things we did was to check his contract with the NFF. Do they have rights sharing agreement, image right, and all of that? I was surprised to see, and our lawyers also were surprised to inform us that there was nothing like that. So we went ahead, since it was a loophole, we went ahead, signed him, did some advert for the brand, and that's where the battle started. They started writing, they started pressuring him. Will he not give them part of it? Blah, blah, blah. You did not sign any. You don't have. They came to us too. He did not have any agreement on sharing, so we cannot take his money unless he gives it to you by himself. You do not have access to his money for his image right. It's his image right that is being used. And I think that was around 2014, going to the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. So you even see that the pinnacle of football administration in Nigeria does not even understand image right of some
Mm,
of the people they bring on board. And that tells you where our problem starts from, where the basic
mm,
education and the top people do not understand. So we cannot make a successful business case out of it if the education is not right and we do not build it. Even for us in the content creation sector, we need access to our players. We should be the ones telling the stories. Brila is about the number one radio station in the country, and when you need to get authentic information, our players should hear Brila and then say, "Oh yeah, we know them," and then give them access. Sometimes you fight with foreign media to get access to our whole national team players. They'll say they are waiting for the BBC, they are waiting for that, and you feel sad. How can we build a strong and successful ecosystem when our own people do not recognize the work? Nobody tells their story the way we would. Absolutely no one. They will tell it to favor their audience, which consumes a different type of content. So you have to understand that when they create that type of content to satisfy their audience, not their local audience. It is why a lot of them disappear after their career because they are not known at home, basically.
Wow. Thank you so much for those comments, Enitan. It's deeply enlightening, and I think it truly captures the essence of how sports, identity, and intellectual property intersect, especially your comments on image rights. And for sure, Nigeria definitely has a long way to go. But, like I mentioned earlier, this is why we hold conversations like this to ensure that people know what their rights are or what their rights could even be. Thank you. So I note that we have a couple of questions in the chat box. So I'll take one or two at this time. Okay, so I have one from Amarachi, and she says, where do you see IP sports in the next few years? I believe this question is targeted at or to both of our speakers.
Ladies first.
Yes, Debbie, please.
Okay. I'm hopeful for Nigeria, and I say this because I believe that if the world starts something, Nigeria catches up eventually. So I'm hopeful that more than just knowing your rights, because again, I think I've said this a couple of times, Brila is a business that knows its rights. The challenge is that sometimes we don't feel motivated to enforce our rights. So I'm hoping that there would be faster and there'll be an easier process for execution. For example, I just found out now that we have a national copyright commission. I even wrote it down here. I want to go and call the woman after this call. Like where have you people been? So I'm hopeful that they would protect people that are actually serious about building the industry, people that don't care about quick clickbait and just going viral for the sake of going viral. Because Brila is a business that has been in sports through it all. When there was COVID and people were literally showing films because there was nothing happening in sports, we stayed. Nigeria did not qualify for last World Cup, we stayed. Nigeria did not qualify for this World Cup, we stayed. If we don't qualify for the next World Cup, we will stay, right? So I'm hopeful. I guess that's the summary. And in terms of the actual of worse things would be. I believe that more people would make more money because they would be aware of the opportunities that come with IP. If you know that there's money in trademarking your business, if you know that there's money in image rights, if you know that there's money in this, you would actually take it more seriously and you would be careful not to touch another person's property because you know that you might actually lose everything that you've worked for. So I think, like Enitan said, there would be better education in Nigeria, but more businesses would also look for opportunities. E.g., Manchester United is a club that we can argue that they are up and down, but it's a 600 million pounds business because half of their revenue comes from merchandising and they're able to merchandise because of IP. So there's an opportunity there. My prayer for all of us in sports is that we get to the point where we start to see the opportunities here as opposed to, oh, let me just take this and run with it, you know. Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie. And just flowing from what you said, there's so many opportunities in IP. There are merchandising rights, like you've mentioned, even design, the jerseys that, these footballers wear. All of these things amount to IP. It's all a commercial advantage at the end of the day. So thank you. So our next question is, how do you strike a balance between content accessibility and IP protection? Anito, would
Okay,
you like to?
basically, you have to go with the law. What the International Media and Broadcast Law says about accessing content. Like if take for instance a big media like CNN, they will not necessarily just show an highlight of the Premier League. They might just take still pictures because they have an agreement with Getty Images, basically. So they will take pictures, live action pictures of those games and just show still pictures, add a bit of motion to it for you to have an idea of the news they are broadcasting. That's for people. So, but it also goes back to the IP owners, the
Mhm.
right owners who also wants to create markets, who wants to get their product out there. Each leagues are at different stages. Premier League is at the peak. You still have a few of other international broadcast sessions who basically will allow you stream their games, show their highlights. They do not raise any issue because they are at the stage of granting more people accessibility to their content. And they know that if you keep pricing people out at this level, they might not have access and they might not be able to use it. So when you now create that content and you set the rules for at which people can access it and how global you want to be, then people begin to understand the stage you are and the kind of content you introduce. But when you have reached the level of saturation, you can now start thinking of protecting at all angles because you know people want that content you want. So once you can strike that balance at the where you are, where your product is, where your content is that you are creating, and where you want to be, and your deliverables, then it helps you situate the right access for each of your content.
Thank you, Anito. So we do have some more questions in the chat box, but I'll quickly round up with our questions for our amazing speakers. So Debbie, we love girl power around here, and we know that your initiative, yes, 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 we know that your initiative, Football for Girls Africa, is committed to helping young girls explore diverse careers in the football industry. Can you please share your journey with us on how that began? What was the inspiration? How's it been?
So we started during the Women's World Cup. We had been going around to raise awareness about women's football in Nigeria and just the power that the Super Falcons have. They're the only team that I support, and they're the most successful African team, And we went to this school, and I'll never forget, I had a conversation with this girl. And she looked at me and she really meant what she was saying. She's like, football is not for girls. Like, why? Almost like, why are you here? And the next question was, she even actually said, so you now, like, how much are they paying you for this work that you're coming to tell us about, football? And it was very interesting because it was such an innocent question, but it sparked something in me that I couldn't stop thinking about. And even just with my career, with my age, with rooms that I'm able to enter inside. Most times I don't see women that are my age. Most times I don't see women at all. And it's more than if you give me a ball, I don't know what to do with it, you know. But I know how to drive a sports business to profitability. And what Football for Girls Africa does is it ensures that women know that you have a place in sports. It's not, especially in football, you don't have to be the actual athlete, you know. You can be the marketer, you can be the lawyer, you can be the the doctor, you can be the pilot, you know. There's so much money around. I think some of us might even make money sometimes more than the footballers because the footballers don't get paid as much, even though now things are getting better. So that's how we started. And I guess you asked another question about that, but that's really the story of Football for Girls Africa. But I think you asked, I think there's a part B to this question. I'm not sure if I missed that.
Oh no, you answered it completely.
Okay,
I was
all
just
right.
asking how your journey began and what inspired you to start.
Yeah, so that's really the story of how we started. And more than that, we've also employed more women in Brila. When I joined Brila, we're about 5 women. Now I can't
Wow.
keep counts. Quite frankly, I think the men are a bit intimidated. They think it's me. They think I'm the one employing women, you know. So, it's just I really think that there's space in this industry for women. I believe that there's no woman that can tell the story of a fellow woman like another woman. And so when it comes to, especially with the women national team, so the Tigress, that's the basketball team, rugby, so many of them were very passionate about that. The last World Cup, it was 3 a.m. They played against Canada. No other traditional media house was on. And I told them, I said, turn on the generator. Like we need to tell people that these women are playing. And that's just how dedicated we are to equality and women's rights within the system. And more than me now, I think even just HR and just other people, and it's not that we're picking or pitching men against women. It's just that we are creating space for women to know that you can join us in sports and you can thrive, but we're also starting from the young generation where no girl ever has to look at me and say, football is just for boys.
Wow, that's so compelling and so inspiring, Debbie. Well
Thank you.
done. You're doing such an amazing job.
Thank you.
So I'm curious to hear from Enitan now. As a sports journalist, we know that your work is heavily copyright protected and influential in, shaping how sporting moments are remembered over time. So, for example, the FIFA Atlanta 1996, the Olympics Atlanta 1996 game, we can't forget that in a hurry. So, in that context, how do you see the emergence of AI impacting traditional sports journalism, particularly in terms of originality, storytelling, and also content creation? Do you think that there is some sort of threat?
Thread for when you discuss the adoption theory at
Mhm.
scale, where you talk about the early adopters, the middle people, and then the sluggard. I like to call them sluggard. That's people who will struggle, will be the sluggard, who do not understand how to create, how to adapt AI to their work. Basically, it is not a threat; it's an opportunity for people who understand it. When you trace back to, especially when it comes to women's sport, sometimes people argue over it, and you say one of the most important, some of the most important milestones in our sport has women in it. It'll be supported by the men though, but yes, has women in it, and we've seen that growth over time, and now we are in the AI section. So the work for us at this, for content creators, for athletes at the AI intersection now, is how to protect your right, how to register IP. At what point will you create if let's take for instance, you are a busy sports person, you have a podcast, you have a faceless YouTube channel as a content creator. That's a good example. How do you create your own image or likeness to help you present your content without having to go to studio every time to put your face, put on the light, go through the editing process, because AI simplifies that for you. So if you're smart enough, at this stage you are integrating AI into your work. From we've at my workplace, because we did a bit of integration into AI integration into how we let people write, because not all of them are trained writers. We have a combination because we wanted to get grassroots stories that the big media houses will not cover. So, but we need them to write well. So we have to set up a regulation on how some of our non-professional writers can write stories and present. Okay, you can use AI, so we have to prepare a document for them, And this is the
Mhm.
rules. This is how you prompt. You have to teach them prompting. And it's very important. One of the most important skills you can have in life. You have to teach them how to prompt properly, how not to mess up quotes. Because those are some of the difficulties we see when AI turns your quote upside down and then AI hallucinates. You start,
Yes.
it puts summary, it puts ideas into your story that you yourself might not recognize the story again. So it's a lot of work for us to do, and which also goes
Mhm.
to content creation, content creators. If we are using AI into your work, you have to protect your identity. You must not lose your voice. The most important thing that dignifies you, that creates that IP you are protecting, is your voice, known voice. When people can hear your voice, people can read your writing and know that this is you. So that is the most difficult part of it, retaining your identity while integrating AI. And of course, how early do you adopt for the kind of work you do? Once you can marry all those stuffs and then learn, which I think law firms like yours can help, learn how to protect it without, because you are using software paid or paid, and not everybody has the time to read the agreements where some of your rights are taken away, even within some of the agreement, the end user agreement, some of your rights are taken away. Who owns, do they store your image and some of the content you put on their platform? So when we learn how to protect those IP rights and keep it ours, and not necessarily a big company takes it away from you, then we can easily say we have arrived at using AI properly in our content creation.
Well, thank you, Enitan, for your comments. I think it definitely highlights how AI can also expand the possibilities of storytelling and originality. And as a firm, we definitely keep abreast of all the evolving trends in today's world, because as much as people might want to ignore AI, we can't. So we
Mhm,
definitely
mhm.
advise our clients as well on, the possibilities and all the evolving trends. Thank you. So we'll move on to our next segment now, and it's just going to be rapid fire questions. No pressure. Debbie, you already like, okay, so other than your current career path, which other would you have considered and why?
Interior design. If I design a room for you, hey.
Wow.
Yeah, interior design for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's shocking, but it's not too late. It's not too late.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Basically, business administration. I've come to love business, running, not just journalism, trying to interview everybody over there or editing people's stories, seeing where they are. I'll probably love to build a huge business that can make impact. Basically, for me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Anito. So I'll check for more questions in the chat box and we'll take one or two. So Omobola Bakare is asking for Debbie. This is to Debbie. So from your interaction with athletes, I'm curious to know if they know that they have these rights.
Um,
Your rights,
I don't think they care. And I'm going to be very honest. They know. And so there are different categories of athletes. There are those that are already educated. So let me also explain something. A lot of people that enter sports, and I'm not trying to bring athletes down, but most of them do not enter with certificates. You went to Harvard Business School, then you now started playing football. So
Mm,
it's a lot of most people transition from the streets into finding money and getting fame. Now, those guys are the ones that are protected by sports agencies, or they are protected. So they are still protected in a way. So they don't feel like they need to care as long as the money is coming to them. Now there's the second category, those ones that finished well, they still have more money. But there's like a C category. I think anyone will understand what I'm trying to say. They don't care because they just want the money. And if it means you take the rights, what is this right? How much is this right bringing to my life? Do you wanna take everything if you're going to
wow.
give me money? So I don't think that they care. And the ones that do care they already have the backing of a strong legal team for as long as they are relevant. The problem is now what they sign when they are relevant. And unfortunately, in that moment where you are relevant, they don't pay. I don't, you need to sit with the average athletes. They don't pay attention to detail. They don't even have it's like when, you know what they say about creatives, but it's not even, they don't want to sit down to read. They will literally tell you what is in that contract. Or yeah, you tell me now what they said I should sign, right? Um, So it's very interesting. I wish that there was a way to educate them. But sometimes when you are trying to educate, it also looks like you have vested interests. That's the truth. So at Brila, there are times where I've sat with a couple of them to say, see, this thing where you are going, I see tears down the road. But they don't, it looks like, okay, you are saying this because you are looking for money or you want Brila to sign me. So I don't know. So yeah, that's it.
Wow. We'll definitely look internally and see how we can contribute to these issues or addressing these issues to the
Yes,
common
please.
act. Thank you, Debbie. So, in the interest of time, we won't be able to take any more questions, but I encourage everyone that has questions to please feel free to reach out to our amazing speakers directly on their respective social media accounts, specifically LinkedIn and Instagram. And also, their details will be circulated shortly after this session. So our time has been far spent, and to bring this to a close, I have none other than our very own Ms. Toju Dotie to give us the closing remarks. She's a partner on the intellectual property team here at Oyebode, and she has over 19 years of experience. She has also been recognized as one of the 100 influential women in IP. Toju, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Alimah, and thank you so much to our distinguished speakers. I mean, I've enjoyed myself just listening to the conversation. And on behalf of the firm, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time to Debbie and Enitan. Your insights on how IP transforms the landscape of sports have been truly insightful. The discussion was not only indicative of the fact that behind every record-breaking performance is a world of innovation and protected creativity. To our moderator, Halima, and our organizing team, thank you for working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that the webinar ran smoothly. Most importantly, thank you to our audience for your time, your engagement, and the thoughtful questions. It has definitely fueled the conversation today. And whilst our time has come to an end, the conversation doesn't have to end. To stay updated, please follow our speakers and also our firm on social media and handles like Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We also invite everyone here to subscribe to our YouTube page where you can find the recording of today's session, along with a wealth of resources to help you navigate the legal world and also intellectual property. Thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event, and happy World IP Day. Thank you so much, Halima.
Thank you, Toju. So to our audience, thank you once more for tuning in and engaging. And as we celebrate the World IP Day today and beyond, I encourage everyone to please keep the conversation going to promote creativity and innovation. And happy World IP Day. Thank you, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Thank
Happy
you,
World
Debbie.
IP Day. Thank you for having
Happy
us.
World IP Day.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Lovely speaking with you. Bye.